condemning fitna, or the divisions within the Muslim community after the death of the murder, actually, of Caliph Osman. And the belief, of course, that division is bad for the community of believers. Wali Amr, however, goes much further and claims complete obedience to the ruler, no matter how he rules. In Saudi Arabia, someone even told me that the ruler can even overrule the Sharia, in the sense that he can overrule court cases. The only exception to this rule if he is considered an infidel. The other conservative development has been to assign the ulama an all-powerful role over religious knowledge, ilm. As the depositaries of religious truth, they are all-powerful and should be followed. In the interest of the state, which calls itself the land of Tawheed, that is Saudi Arabia, of course, Bilad al-Tawheed, politics has become completely collapsed with religion. The two are almost inseparable. Basically, the true Islam is Deen wa Dawla, and only exists in Saudi Arabia. But the strange thing is, of course, that one can look at it, of course, in both ways. Does religion dominate political power on the one hand, or as the state claims, or does political power dominate religion, as its opponents claim? These, of course, are the paradoxes one is confronted with when religion and politics are mixed and collapse. It is this combination of this thoughtlessness following of Alim and the political doctrine of Wali al-Amr that has turned Wahhabism into a quietist political doctrine. The examples are numerous. Hizbah, or the promoting of the good, and the forbidding of evil, or preventing of bad, has been given to the religious police and has become a state obligation. The Council of Higher Ulama has been given a monopoly over religious interpretation and such divisive doctrines as takfir. And in the 1980s and 1990s, the state has directed jihad outwards to promote a pan-Islamist policy of Saudi support for Islamic liberation movements, such as in Afghanistan, Chechnya, and Bosnia. It is this state version of Salafism that has been exported to the rest of the world. Piety and political quietism are its hallmarks. So let's look at the different forms of Salafism which have evolved from this idea. On the one hand, the state has never been able to completely suppress all forms of individual interpretation and dissension. One can make a division between, on the one hand, the movements that are apolitical and fall within the limits of Wahhabism, and on the other hand, movements that leave more room for politics and human agency. All three movements are active in the Middle East and Europe. They also fight internally because A, the contradictions are also exported, and without the Saudi state to contain them can no longer be papered over or repressed. And B, they adopt local practices and combine Salafism with other doctrines. So let us look partly at the Muslim Brotherhood, just for briefly, because the Muslim Brotherhood is basically the instrument from outside which has influenced the political form of Salafism. One of the main sources of inspiration is the Muslim Brotherhood and its acceptance of politics during the past 30 years. This current concentrates on the acceptance of a concept of Hizbiyah and party politics. I believe what I try to argue is basically that the acceptance of politics has been the major change in the Muslim Brotherhood and basically within the Islamic movement during the past 30 years. And it centers around the whole idea of his and Hizbiyah. And of course, the acceptance of the idea that division is acceptable. Ikhtilaf has been accepted. And the idea that debate is necessary to reach certain political goals. This, of course, has implications also for all other movements. How can we make coalitions with other political movements, liberal movements, non-Islamic movements, etc., etc. But this has signified actually a revolution within the Brotherhood. It accepts also an embracement of parliamentary politics, the idea of division, as I said, and even in some forms of the Muslim Brotherhood to pluralism, ta'adudiyya. For instance, the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood published a program in 2004 in which it accepts pluralism as one of the bases of its political action. But it goes much further than that. It also accepts the rule of law, and especially the acceptance of politics as an autonomous space. And especially this last idea of politics as a separate and non-religious sphere is, of course, the major change from the Islamic movements as we know it into a post-Islamic movement, post-Islamist movement, as someone calls it. One can argue that in the end this can lead, of course, to secularization, like happened in Christian democratic parties in Europe. Where eventually the danger lies in the dilution of Islamic doctrine, and especially the whole idea of Islam as an all-encompassing political system, and its claim to have answers to all questions of life. Basically, this is still the same concept which Salafism adheres to. But it used to be also the basic ideas of the Muslim Brotherhood. Islam is a total system, a nizam al-kamal. And the Salafis have, as the Salafis have, of course, within the whole idea of the concept of manhaj, which is also, it's not only a practice, but it's also that it's a total doctrine for all aspects of life. So politics basically, if you accept this idea, erodes both the claims to truth and turns Islam into an ethical guidelines for life rather than a complete system. In the end, the three general types of Salafism can be discerned. Of course, we mentioned this, the quietist Salafism, that is apolitical. The political Salafis who have been influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood, and jihadi Salafism, which concentrates on jihad as its main element. All of them are presently and simultaneously present in all parts of the world where Salafism has appeared. The question which one of these dominates or is important depends to a large degree on the political and cultural and religious circumstances in which Salafism operates. One of the main issues in the debates among them is whether politics should be included and to what extent. This leads to apolitical Salafi accusing political Salafis of being Hizbis. Doesn't work. This works. This one. One of them is the debate among them whether politics should be included and to what extent. This leads to apolitical Salafis accusing political Salafis of being Hizbis, of course derived from the term of Hizb, or being Tabdis. These are kind of discussions which are going on in England, who accept, of course, derived from the whole idea of the concept of bid'ah and its second form, those who accept innovation, and harakis, of course, the political activist movements. And the Muslim Brotherhood is condemned by the apolitical Salafis as a haraki movement, which leads to divisions. So if you look, wait, I'll go back. Let's look at Europe just for a second to see why Salafism is so important and is so attractive to Muslims in the European context. And then we'll go back to Egypt, look a bit more at the Muslim Brotherhood, and see how Salafism and the Muslim Brotherhood has evolved, both in Egypt and in Europe. So let us look at Europe and try to define why Salafism has so many attracted, especially young people. The main reason is that in a contentious age, Salafism transforms the humiliated, the downtrodden and disgruntled young, the discriminated migrant, or the politically repressed into a chosen sect.